Hello world, it's Berto Prey 5, Cupflaw, and welcome to my review of Star Trek Discovery, Season 3, Episode 10, Terra Firma Part 2. Wow, that was quite the mouthful. And I'm just going to get straight to the point. Yes. Oh, okay, well. Yes, they fucked with the Guardian of Forever, those sons of bitches. But you know what? That was by far not the worst part of this episode. In fact, truth be told, yes, it turns out Carl is indeed the Guardian of Forever. And as angry as I was last week, saying if they F with the Guardian of Forever, I'm going to be even more angry this week. That perhaps how they wrote themselves out of that was perhaps the best script writing this show has ever had in its 3 seasons. By the end of the episode, it almost made sense he was the Guardian of Forever. And I shit you not. I shit you not. There was plenty of other cringe and disgust and Michael Burnham Appreciation Day garbage in this episode. But at the end of the episode, Carl, aka the Guardian of Forever, minor nitpick at best, or worst, wherever you want to see it. So let's go through the episode. As you can see, it started with another bullshit scene of like 15 feet of storage space and machinery between the hull and and space, which is bullshit. Obviously, no Starfleet ship is designed that way. Certainly, Discovery can't be designed that way. I mean, the saucer is as narrow already. I mean, and we saw last season on the Enterprise, a similarly constructed Starfleet ship, that when the torpedo came through the hull, and poor Admiral whatever her face was sitting behind the blast door, and Pike had to let her detonate the torpedo. There clearly can't be 15 feet of room between the hull and space. The torpedo would have been completely in this empty area. So stupid, and literally the first scene of the episode. Fine. There's plenty of other things. So we start off, we're in the mirror universe, still where we were at the end of last episode. Georgiou is going to agonize Michael back into loving her somehow. Like, Georgiou's plan is literally to just agonize Michael and have Captain Killy interrogate, aka torture her, for months, until they break her. And then she will love Georgiou again and follow her every whim. And this is the literal plan of Georgiou, who is a changed person and admits it several times this episode, that she's changed. She's seen a better way to rule, and it makes no sense. Okay, because when she stepped through the Guardian of Forever last week, remember, she stepped into a body that was already there. This was not the typical, city on the edge of forever. You jump through the Guardian and you in your clothing appear at this time. Now, they write it so it makes sense, but just remember, she did go back in time, and we get confirmation at the end of this episode that what is happening here, although it is also a test, it is also really happening. And we'll get into this. So this is real. This is happening. This is changing the timeline of the mirror universe. But she's going to end up back in the future before this episode's over. But then she's going to end up back in the past. So let's get through it. So she's antagonizing Michael literally in the Agonizer book. Agonizing Michael in the Agonizer booths. Torturing her, having Captain Killy torture her, and all this thing to break her. Michael is like, "You're so weak. Why did you get so weak? And you're not planning. The Sharon is your retirement. You're not going to be fighting battles anymore. You're going to retire to a palace in the sky. Why aren't you fighting anymore on the ground?" I'm like, she's emperor. What is she going to fight? And okay, maybe a couple of great rulers throughout history went to the battlefield. For the most part, emperors sat at the palace and, just let their underlings do their bidding for them. And then we get the intro, which is a mirror universe intro. But unlike Star Trek Enterprise, which had a totally cool mirror universe intro, all they did was change it from like beige to blue, and then they literally flipped it upside down. The graphics are the same graphics, 100%. The robots are upside down. The comm badges are upside down. The ships are upside down. They were so effing lazy, they shouldn't have even bothered to make a separate mirror intro. Okay? The Enterprise did it right. When they made an intro just for 2 episodes, they did it right. All new scenes from the mirror perspective. Here, they just flipped it upside down and put it through a color filter to change the color. We have pictures of Bookship. Bookship isn't in the mirror universe. It's not even, it's not even from the time. It was effing lazy. And I wouldn't have cared if they had just kept the original opening. But if you're going to go through this whole thing and make a mirror intro, then at least put a little effing effort into it. I could have made this change on my own with my, basic editing tools. It pissed me off. It pissed me off to no end. So Michael's in the jail cell, the brig. In the beginning, she gets nice full meals. She throws them all to the wall. She won't eat. They say, well, they'll just have the doctor force feed her later. And as the months go by or weeks go by that she's in the brig, you notice that every meal she gets, it's a little smaller and a little smaller until later when she does finally break. It's just a piece of bread. Okay. There's a line. Georgiou is watching Michael in the Agonizer booth, and she's like, "It's the origin of every parent. Why can't the kids just believe what they say? Why do they only learn through pain?" And like Georgiou, it's really upsetting Georgiou. She's basically feels like she has to punish her daughter. She's spanking Michael right now until Michael loves her again. We get repeated shots of Michael being agonized, which is pretty good. There's a scene where Georgiou is in there talking to Michael, who is recovering from a prolonged stay in the Agonizer booth, presumably from malnutrition as well. Michael's just out of it, and Georgiou sitting there telling her about, do you remember when you were a child, you used to have these terrible night terrors, and you would go sleepwalking, and Georgiou would hold her down until she stopped. But then later, Georgiou decided to just let her sleepwalk and see where she went. And she would go to this field of fireflies and just stand in this field of fireflies until she calmed down. And Georgiou misses doing that with her. And she was actually felt bad when Michael outgrew the need to go to the firefly fields. So Georgiou brings her a fishbowl of fireflies and puts it next to her. And we are supposed to believe that is finally the moment where Michael breaks. She sits up, she eats some bread, and she of course, she's like, oh, she apologizes to her mother. She says, you can trust me again, which of course means you can't trust her, but whatever. She said, once somebody tells you, oh, you can trust me again. No, don't. So Georgiou's like, well, you're going to have to make amends, not only to me, but to your subjects. What? To her subjects? She's like, how are your subjects ever going to trust you? Georgiou says, how are your subjects ever going to trust you? You're the emperor of the Terran Empire. Your subjects don't trust you. They fear you. Whatever. So Michael's like, well, I'll turn in all my co-conspirators. And she's like, it's not good enough. And like, okay, I'll kill them by my own hand. And Georgiou's like, yeah, you can let Detmer help you, because they knew Detmer was in on it. But Detmer seems to be Michael's closest friend in this universe. So they let Detmer, Michael thanks her. So her and Detmer go on to kill all the other co-conspirators. This first person to die, she looked familiar. I couldn't put it immediately. I had to look it up. Her name is Landry. She was the security chief in season 1 of Discovery. She was the security chief under Lorca, and she was the one who died trying to sedate the tardigrade. And that was the crew person killed when the tardigrade went crazy. That first, I wouldn't say it wasn't the first episode, but the first episode with the tardigrade. Landry unfortunately died in the Prime universe there. Now in the Mirror universe, she's still here. It's actually kind of interesting. We had a lot of the old crew. We had what was her face? The robot woman. See, here's the thing. In real world, the person who played the robot, Akira, I'll find it. Doesn't matter. The person who played the robot she had an allergy to the makeup or something. She couldn't take it. So that's why they wrote the robot off, and they brought in Lieutenant Nilsson. Nilsson is the actress who played under the makeup of the robot. But now Nilsson is a character. They kept Nilsson. They brought her in as Atrium. It's not Adira. Adira is the Trill non-binary character. Oh man. I think I wrote it down somewhere. Arium. There it is. Arium. So Arium used to be played by the actress who played Nilsson, but Nilsson is in Discovery in the Mirror universe. By the way, in the Prime universe, Nilsson is a blonde. In the Mirror universe, Nilsson is a brunette. Looks pretty good as a brunette, I gotta say, but I guess because Tilly is a redhead in the Prime universe, and she's a blonde in the Mirror universe, I guess women's hair colors and hairstyles change because, it's the Mirror universe. So yeah, so Nilsson is a brunette, but they also have another actress, and I don't know if she was ever in Discovery before or not, but they have another actress who's a human playing Arium, who in the Mirror universe is also human, because remember, in the Prime universe, Arium was a human, but she got injured, and that's why they had to replace her with robot parts. So this Arium has not yet had, or not going to have, the same accident Prime universe Arium has. So it's weird that we have both Arium as a human and Nilsson on the bridge at the same time later. Maybe I put too much effort into thinking about that, but those are the kind of things that make me go, that's interesting. So Landry first to die, and then they also killed Bryce. Michael comes up to Georgiou. She's eating lunch or something with Owo and a couple other people, and Michael throws out the badge for Landry. Then she throws out the badge and says, Bryce. So Bryce was killed off screen. And then Michael just drops like a dozen more badges. And she's like, and all the rest. And so Georgiou is there, and she's like, so this is everybody? And Michael and Detmer are there. She's like, yes. So then Georgiou's like, Michael? And then Michael takes a dagger and kills Detmer, which I saw coming. I think we all saw it coming, because Detmer was the last one then. So Michael kills her best friend right next to Georgiou, right next to the table where everybody's eating. And finally, Michael has proven herself as, trustworthy again, at least, supposedly. So now Michael and Georgiou are another scene. They're eating together. And so Michael's like, I heard you made some changes, She was happy that she listened to, Georgiou listened to Michael and used back channels to bring down a coalition that was forming between the Vulcans and Denobulans. Oh, they brought up Denobulans, yay. And Andorians and whatnot. The timing is a little off for all this to be happening, but whatever. Time has no meaning. By the end of this episode, time has no meaning, and we'll get to that. They said Denobulans though, so yay Denobulans. Dr. Phlox kind of ties in to the Terran universe episodes of Enterprise. Of course, this was all before. Discovery is after Enterprise, so doesn't make a hell of a lot of sense. But Michael says, "Oh, I know the kitchen stopped serving Kelpian." And Georgiou's like, "Yeah, you have a problem with that?" And Michael said, "No." Georgiou says, "Yeah, we stopped serving Kelpian because it was too high in cholesterol." It was too high in cholesterol? That's why the mirror universe stopped serving Kelpian. Come on, guys. Okay? Lie to me. Make up some better excuse. Don't tell me it was high in cholesterol. Nobody would believe that. Not even the dumbest idiot in the mirror universe is going to be like, oh, we should stop eating Kelpians. It's high in cholesterol. Just you know what? Say, fucking, it's got a disease. Or eating Kelpians makes you go bald or something. Don't fucking tell me it's high in cholesterol and stringy. You people have ate Kelpians. They know if it's stringy or not. Nobody ever stopped eating a food because somebody said it was high in cholesterol. I mean, like 2 people stop and like 500 million people keep eating it or eat more of it. Fucking high in cholesterol. High in cholesterol. I don't want to hear about cholesterol in Star Trek. So she says, okay, Michael, now we got to find Lorca. And Michael's like, well, Lorca uses the code name Vicar. And Georgiou laughs. She's like, Vicar? That means substitute. Which is like, well, maybe this is Prime Lorca in the mirror universe. Or whatever. It's Lorca's, mind games because he knows about the other universe. I don't know. We never see Lorca in this episode, which personally I'm not too upset about. Never. I know a lot of people think Lorca was a great captain. I don't understand where they get that from, but I don't miss him, and I was happy that Jason Isaacs doesn't have to get a paycheck from this episode. So I don't miss Lorca or Isaacs at all, but he's not coming. If you're expecting him to come, he's not coming. I don't know why he's that important to kill. Georgiou can forgive Michael, but not Lorca, I guess. And Georgiou is like, yeah, until we kill him, we'll always be at war. He's not doing anything, apparently. Anyway, then we get another scene where Georgiou is talking to Saru, and Georgiou assures Saru that, don't worry, Saru, you're going to be staying with me. You're not going back to Michael. And he's like, I'm sorry, I can't stay with you. And this is it. This is the scene. He's like, Vaharai has come for me. And he would be honored if Georgiou would call him personally. And Georgiou's like, hell no, I'm not going to call you. She's like, just lock yourself in a room. In a few days, you'll be fine. You'll be stronger than ever. He's like, what are you talking about, Willis? And she's like, no, I'm telling you, I knew some Kelpians that this happened to, far away land, a long time ago. A Kelpia named Saru. He was the captain of a spaceship. And yeah, he went through Vaharai, and he became stronger and wiser and all this stuff. And Saru's like, that's just a fable. And she's like, no, trust me. Just go lock yourself in a room. You'll be fine. And then Saru gets a little pissed. He's like, but all my friends, my family, my sister, they didn't have to die. And Georgiou's like, no, it's okay. You live, and that's your way to avenge them. You live. I don't know how Saru just accepts that, but he does, and he walks off to go through Vaharai. Whatever. Saru does tell her that, wait, the way you speak to me, you're not a Terran. You've got to go back where you came from, or they're going to kill you here. And Georgiou assures him that she's there to stay forever, and it is where she belongs. So then they get a hit on Lorca. It's not Lorca, but one of Lorca's henchmen, a guy named Dugan. They find his shuttle. It's outside Risa, or on Risa in orbit. And so Georgiou wants the Discovery to go there. Why are they not taking the Chiron or the Chiron or whatever the hell the big palace ship's name is? I don't know. But they're on the Discovery with Captain Killy. So Captain Killy is first like, well, you don't need to waste your time going after some low-level henchman. I can do it. Me and Michael can take a shuttlecraft and go dispatch this guy. And Georgiou's like, no, I want to go. So, okay, the Discovery goes to warp 9, and heads over to Risa. And there's the shitty shuttle in orbit of Risa. It's the only ship in 100,000 light years or 100 light years. And so they target the ship. Now, they want the ship to survive. So what do you do when you want a ship to survive, but you damage it? You generally fire a phaser at it. But I don't know if the Discovery doesn't have phasers or what, but instead they shoot a torpedo at it. And I was like, oh shit, somebody's going to get fired. They're about to blow up that shuttle. No, of course the torpedo just damaged his engines. It didn't destroy the shuttlecraft, which is ridiculous. You can't fire a torpedo at a shuttle. You can say, oh, there's a variable yield in the photon torpedo. Give me a break, guy. You fire a photon torpedo at a shuttle, you blow up the shuttle. It's a fucking shuttlecraft. But whatever, they just damaged his engines enough, and even his communications still work. He was able to hail them and was like, you sons of bitches, you broke my engines. And Georgiou's like, well, you can fix them again. Practice makes perfect, blah, blah, blah. So they beam him onto the brig of the Discovery. And meanwhile, he's warning the Emperor. He's like, your time is coming sooner than you think. Like, that's not a big hint that this is about to set in steps the motion that's going to take her down. So Michael orders him beamed into the brig. So Michael and Georgiou go down, and she's like, you better send the honor guard as well. Can't be too careful. And so they get down there, and Michael says, where's Lorca? And he's like, you don't expect me, or actually Georgiou asks, where's Lorca? You don't expect me to answer that. And Michael aims the gun at him, the phaser, and she kills him. And then she aims it at Georgiou, and oh my God, Michael was lying. She really isn't. She wasn't broken at all. She's been biding her time. And so it turns out that Michael, Wilson Cruz, Dr. Culber, and a couple other people they're all still co-conspirators or whatever. And Michael's got the phaser to the head of Georgiou, and she's like, why didn't you kill me? You should have killed me. Blah, blah, blah. Reese and Nielsen come in. They vaporize a couple of the guards. So Reese, Nielsen, Culber are on Michael's side. So she's like, you shouldn't have trusted me to Georgiou. And Georgiou says, you know what? I really didn't trust you, not like I should have. And with that, Captain Killy and Owo come in and they're shooting, so they start a fight. And then Saru and other Kelpians come in holding phasers, and they're fighting on the side of Captain Killy and the Emperor. Captain Killy, Owo, Saru, another unnamed Kelpian, have been, the slaves have been given weapons, and they are now fighting on behalf of the slave masters. Michael and Georgiou enter the brig, and now they're separated by a force field. So even though they could both previously walk through the force fields earlier, presumably now they can't walk through the force field anymore, and no one else can come in or get out. So they're like, oh, finally we're alone, and it's one-on-one, and Michael and Georgiou fight, and it ends with the best scene of the third season, Georgiou driving a sword through Michael Burnham's stomach, killing her, as Michael Burnham bleeds out and bleeds to death. Unfortunately, Michael also put a dagger into Georgiou's neck at the same time, so Georgiou also dies, just much slower. So yeah. And then that's when it all goes. So Georgiou, as she's dying, she hears something about going through or getting through a doorway or whatever, and then her eyes open, and she's back on the snow planet with Carl and Michael. And Michael's like, you've only been unconscious like a minute. And she's like, that's been possible. I've spent months. I was on Terra. He sent me back to Terra. I've been there for months. And Michael's like, no, you're just, you're imagining things. You've been here a minute. And Carl is like, yeah, just check your bracelet. It has all the answers. So now we know why the bracelet was so important to the story. Oh, there's Saru going. He's Vaharai. He went through Vaharai, so he's strong again. He's throwing people up into the ceiling. So back by the Guardian, Carl, who's the Guardian. Carl's like, yeah, just check your bracelet. So we know why the bracelet's so important, because the bracelet recorded 3 months of bio data. So we know it was real. She really was someplace for 3 months. We're still not 100% sure where she was, but she was somewhere for 3 months. So that was legit. And so it turns out you think she was cured, but no. Maybe after a minute or two, after talking again, her cells start pulling away from her body. So Michael's like, I thought this whole point was to cure her. And Carl is like, well, it was a test. He didn't say it was a test. He said he had to weigh what to do. And she's like, weigh? Well, if you wanted to test me, why don't you just tell me? He's like, telling you the answer before the question. It doesn't make sense. Basically, Georgiou thinks she failed. She thinks she failed because she had to kill Michael again, and she ended up dying. And Carl is like, yeah, but this time you did it for peace. You killed her for peace. You tried to make peace. You even saved Kelpians. You didn't have to do that. And so basically she passed Carl's test. And Georgiou is getting really pissed off, and Michael's getting pissed off. And she's like, just tell me who you really are. And that's when we hear the familiar, though different, deep voice. I am the guardian of forever. And Carl, or no, it doesn't Carl, just out of the ice pops the guardian of forever, looking very much like it did in the original City on the Edge of Forever episode, except instead of scenes of the past in the center of the guardian, there's now a very futuristic looking time tunnel vortex effect. You don't actually see what's on the other side, which I think is a big change from the way the Guardian used to work. But it's just a funny looking, well, not funny, it's a futuristic looking tunnel effect that, okay, it brings it up to modern standards, but the whole point of seeing where you're going, that's lost, that's gone. And I guess they wanted that to leave it a mystery as to where exactly Georgiou is going to. So they're like, what the hell is this? So Carl explains the history of what happened. They're like, what's a Guardian of Forever? Because they don't know what the Guardian of Forever is. And he's like, I'm a time portal, a time and universe portal, a gateway to other times, other worlds. He's like, and I used to just send people through and let them change the past. And it was all fun and games. He's like, and then the temporal wars started. And people were using me to go back and kill people. And that made the Guardian of Forever so sad. So sad. Because, you know, back in the original City on the Edge of Forever, when McCoy goes back and changes all the history, that did not make him sad. But then later during the temporal wars, when people were going back to kill other people, that made the Guardian Forever so sad that he decided to leave the planet he was on and hide out in a very distant planet so nobody could find him. And Michael's like, oh, so it took the sphere, only a sphere with 100,000 years of data and access to Starfleet's databases could possibly have extrapolated where the Guardian of Forever would go. I mean, it's one of the dumbest lines I ever heard. No. Clearly, the Guardian didn't move until after the sphere stopped collecting data. Okay? And Starfleet clearly couldn't have known where the Guardian of Forever was, or it would still be using it, presumably. So no, it makes no sense that they could extrapolate where the Guardian went. But whatever. But at this point, the Guardian tells Georgiou, he's like, you saved the Kelpian. He's like, and that Kelpian will go on to save dozens or hundreds of others. So she changed the history. So the test was still real. She really went back in time. She killed Mirror Stamets before Discovery met Mirror Stamets. So here's the problem. From everything we know about the Guardian of Forever, the person on the planet with them is shielded from the changes in the timeline. But everybody else in orbit and the rest of the galaxy universe is not. So as soon as Georgiou went through the first time, it should have changed history. Michael Burnham should have been sitting alone on the planet with no ship to go back to. And then, if you want to say, well, that was just a test and he didn't know, he saved everybody else from being changed. Okay. But then when Georgiou goes, so what Georgiou has to do to actually live is go through a second time. And she's like, I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back to Terra. He's like, I'm not sending you back to Terra. I'm just sending you back to a time when the mirror universe and the prime universe were closer together so you don't die. He's like, not a lot of people get a second chance. You know, do good with it. And there's this whole long goodbye scene between Michael and Georgiou. And Georgiou tells Michael, you're even more special or something than you think. God. And Michael's like, you're more special than you think, too. And Michael's like, you're my Philippa. Like a giant insult again to the real Philippa. Like Saru insulted the real Philippa Georgiou, the prime Philippa Georgiou last week. This week, Michael insults her by saying, you're my real Philippa. No, she's not the real Philippa. The real Philippa died. You killed her. Well, you basically killed her. This is another Philippa, fine, but not yours. So they said, so basically she's got to go back through time. She doesn't know exactly where she's going, except Carl says, just step through when you're ready. You're going to go back to a time when the universes were closer together and you won't, die. And so she walks through, and that's it. The Guardian, Carl just disappears. The Guardian Forever, I believe, disappears. And that's it. Michael eventually beams back up to Discovery, and the mirror universe ends, and we presumably will not see Georgiou again until the Section 31 show eventually comes out. Back on the Discovery, meanwhile, we find Jet Reno, who has been missing for like 6 or 7 episodes, and even Stamets says, I haven't seen you in forever. What have you been up to? And she apparently was working, trying to upgrade the engines of the ship, even though they just went through a refit. Even though the ship just went through a refit, they got all new nacelles. Jet Reno is still trying to upgrade the engine somehow. And she's like, and I was really close to doing it until you took my power, because they needed all this extra power to hack into the Kelpian ship that's inside the radioactive nebula. And Stamets says a line that I couldn't make up if I tried. Let me see where it is. Stamets. Where are we? I'm sorry. Stamets says we have eminent. God damn it. Where is it? Basically, Saru tells Stamets that they have eminent allocation clearances. So they can take any power from anywhere in the ship they want. Meanwhile, Jet Reno is also eating what looks like a licorice, like a dark Twizzler licorice. And like Adira's like, you can't have food in here. And Jet Reno's like, it's not food, it's candy. Anyway, they realize they can't hack into the ship. They don't know why, and for some reason, Booker is there. Book is there, and Book is like, I know why you can't hack into the ship. He's like, because you don't know you can amplify some subspace signals. And like, what are you talking about? He's like, I read the field manual, which is what he said. So Saru told him to do last week, was to read the field manual and wait till you were useful. He's like, so Jet Reno, super engineer who could keep people alive with their brains in jars and hearts in jars, and was updating the warp engines, even though 32nd century engineers already refit the Discovery. Stamets, another genius level character. Adira, who is a third genius level character. All three of them could not solve the issue of how to contact this Kelpian ship inside the radioactive nebula. But Book can, because he read the book. He read 2 books. He read the field manual and he read the technical manual. And now he can solve the problem because he had access to special Emerald Chain tech, which allows couriers to amplify subspace signals so they can contact people over longer distances. And so he can integrate that tech into Discovery, and they should be able to make hack into the ship. Why are they not just hailing the ship? Too easy, I guess. They don't think anybody's alive, I assume, but they don't even try. So before they can put this tech in Discovery, Saru decides he needs to talk to Admiral Vance of Vance Refrigeration. So Admiral Vance has a holo call. Apparently subspace signaling is working fine. They're close enough to... Oh my God. This show makes no sense. We know the location of Danis 5. It's in the outer rim of the galaxy, almost at the Gamma Quadrant. I don't care where the Federation headquarters is. It is nowhere near Danis 5. Yet somehow, now, in this episode, Discovery can communicate instantaneously with Starfleet headquarters, but they couldn't before, right? The guy on that station that they met in episode 1 or 2, the guy who was waiting 40 years for somebody for the Federation to talk to him, that poor guy can't get a message more than a sector or 2 away. But right now, Discovery can talk to, and there's Admiral Vance, and I'll grant you, his hologram glitches out from time to time, right? Like he'll glitch in a second. But that's it. They're doing real-time instantaneous communication from across the galaxy because they need to for this episode for reasons. But all the rest of the time in the series, there was a glitch. All the rest of the time in the series, you can't communicate over long distances. Why change? Why is there a change? Nobody knows. But they can amplify subspace signal enough to talk to Admiral Vance, but they can't amplify a subspace signal enough to talk to the ship in the nebula. So why don't they just go effing closer to the nebula? Too easy. So Vance gives permission for him to use the tech, and Vance also so Saru gets notice that Michael is beaming up from the planet and she's alone. So Book is excused so he can go talk to Michael because they all assume Georgiou died on the planet. And so Vance and Saru talk, and Vance, like, one more thing before you go, my condolences, your ship is going to miss her. Nobody should miss Georgiou. Maybe Michael. No one else should be missing Georgiou. Certainly not Vance. But he's like, oh, I know, you guys are going to miss her. So Booker also says that he wants to, he wants to help. He wants to formalize his relationship. And Vance is like, well, if you're going to stay on Discovery, you need to follow Starfleet procedures. And Book's like, maybe it's better I don't follow procedures because, Osira doesn't have any procedures. So it's probably better I don't have to follow procedure. And then, that'll give you a leg up on Osira. And apparently that's okay. That logic works for Vance. He doesn't push the issue anymore. So Book gets to be a part of Discovery without having to follow Starfleet procedure because who cares? It's the 32nd century. Vance does call out Saru on why did he hold back on telling him about the Kelpian ship. He's like, I think you just saw another Kelpian for the first time in centuries, and you were trying to hide this from me. And Saru's like, no, I promise. It was just I didn't want to come to you until I had more information, which sounds like a crock of shit. But Saru is not known to be a liar, so I have to take him at his word. Vance gives condolences on Georgiou's death before knowing she died. Nobody knows what happened to her. Michael is just beaming back to the ship. No one knows that she's actually dead, but everybody assumes she is. And then we get one of the worst, most cringy scenes ever in Star Trek Discovery. A memorial service the entire crew has for Empress Georgiou. They talk about how great she was, how she took She didn't take shit from anyone. She was a badass in every universe. Bullshit shit. None of these people should know. There was no intimidating. You didn't know her. Jet Reno, what the fuck are you doing there? When did you meet her? Why do you know anything about her? Saru, okay, maybe Saru could have a word to say. Michael Burnham said she was a pain in the ass, and they all laugh. She was like, but she was like a sister to me and a mother to me, and she meant more to me than any of you ever will. Well, she didn't say it that exactly, but it's what she meant. It's so effing cringe. And this is it. Then the episode ends on a freaking memorial scene to a genocidal, homicidal, maniac empress who did change towards the end of her life, but most of these people had no real relationship with her. They act like she's been a part of the crew for a decade. She hasn't been on the crew all that long. What happened at the end of season 2 for this crew presumably only happened a few weeks ago. Remember, Discovery went right from the battle at the end of season 2 directly to the 32nd century, and they were just a few days away before they found Starfleet headquarters. Michael Burnham sat alone in the future for a year with Book. But Discovery, they haven't been there that long, okay? Georgiou had not been on Discovery all that long. It makes no sense these people would have these long relationships with her. I mean, they were saying a goodbye that would have been worthy of a main character like, Data or Riker, or even when they thought Geordi and Ensign Rowe died, and most of the people were there for Geordi. But yeah, those are the types of memorial services you would think. I'm sorry. I just don't believe that anybody cared enough about Georgiou to have this giant memorial service. I don't think it would affect the ship that much. And the very fact is, she's real. I mean, she's dead, only that she went back to the past. But Michael and Saru, so Saru said, well, if she's not back, she's dead. So he's just declaring her deceased. Assuming nobody knows she went back to the past, except Michael. But here's the thing. If she went back to the past, then by all rights and everything we know, she should have affected the future. And either she went back to the past, was completely ineffective, and just died immediately, in which case maybe the future didn't change, or she goes back to the past and actually makes a difference, in which case the future should have immediately updated, right? When we saw in The City on the Edge of Forever, when somebody went back to the past, the future around them changed, and then, starships changed, the Federation changed. If she could go back and prevent the burn, she might have prevented the burn. Everything would have changed. Nothing changed. So this is why I say time had no meaning anymore. They call it the Guardian of Forever. Okay, I actually understood the reason why it moved, and perhaps the reason why it made this avatar of Carl. I could get it. It surprisingly, it didn't upset me as much as I thought. In fact, I thought it was kind of an interesting plot twist. I was okay with it in the end. What I'm not okay with, though, is you go through the Guardian forever, you change history around you, only the people next to the Guardian on the planet are spared those changes. Everything else should have changed. So either Georgiou made no difference to history, or what? Or they're ignoring the way the Guardian of Forever works. I have to believe... I'm sorry, there's a big wind and snow gust outside. I have to believe Georgiou does make a difference to history, else there'd be no point to having a Section 31 show. So time should have changed. Something should have changed. Like they should have gotten back And they should have said, oh, the Federation is, twice as big, or the burn didn't happen at the same time, or something. Something should have changed. That's all I'm saying. It's bullshit. There were 2 episodes here. There was a mirror episode, and there was the time with the Guardian, and that was actually pretty good. But then there was everything that happened after they got back, and that was terrible. Then there was also quite a bit of Michael Burnham being the bestest ever in both universes. In the mirror universe, 3 or 4 times we heard Georgiou tell Michael how great she is and how great she could be and how great she will be. And then in the real Prime universe, again, we get Michael Burnham. You're better than even you. You're better than even you think you are. I mean, and then Michael tells Georgiou, no, you're better than you think you are too. It's like, my God, these are the 2 people that don't need to have their ego played up anymore. It was just sickening. And that final cringe scene, it hurt. But I got to give this a score. There was half a good episode here. I may say half a very good episode. So I'm going to give it half a score. Another 5 out of 10. It's similar to last week, but backwards. The sad part is that if I had the time and I could edit last week's and this week's episode together and cut out 45 or 50 or 60 minutes of it, I think I could get one really solid episode of Discovery out of it. Now, it would still not adhere to canon. I mean, what the hell was the point of going 1,000 years in the future so you step around canon if you're going to go right back to the Guardian Forever and piss on it? But that said, I bet between the 2 episodes, each of them about 49 minutes long, I could get, a decent 40, 45-minute episode if I edited out a lot of crap. So between them both, I think they're both 5s out of 10. And there's the most potential in these 2 episodes than I've ever seen in Discovery. That said, squandered quite a bit. So 5 out of 10. That's where we are. Next week's episode, I doesn't even look that interesting, I'll be honest. I don't know if they're going to make it to the ship. It looks like they make it to the ship in the nebula. They should have been at this ship 3-4 episodes ago, but they're finally going to go find the ship. And it looks like people get stranded on the ship and there's radiation they have to worry about. It just looks like a mess. Next week's looks terrible. We'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. So anyway, guys, if you've enjoyed this review, thank you so much. Thank you for sticking around. Please remember to comment, like, subscribe. I beg you, please, to subscribe. YouTube, they keep taking away my subscribers. If I honestly believed that every week, 20 people unsubscribed, but 25 people subscribed, I really wouldn't mind it. But I highly doubt that many people are clicking unsubscribe. YouTube is just doing it for you. So please double check that you're still subscribed. Comment if you can. If you have any questions, how can I improve? And that's it. Check out my other channel, BirdOPrey5X. Check out birdopray5.com if you want to learn more. And that's it. Kapla all. Bird out.